On July 10th, 2016, inside Calipatria State Prison in California, two groups of inmates were given orders to take out a well-known Mexican Mafia member who had fallen out of favor. Emiliano, Tonito, Lopez, who was repping Eastside Wilmas, was to be taken out. The first group's priority was to take out Tonito's bodyguards, which was to cause a diversion for correction staff. The second group, made up of two inmates who went by Stomper and Spider from Monrovia, California, were to take Tonito out, thus completing the mission. The two guys who ultimately killed Emiliano Tonito Lopez were both Soreños who were promised membership into the coveted La M and become made members of the Mexican Mafia. However, the fallout from this hit would run deep, ultimately almost costing the life of the two hitters, and just goes to show you the cold, dark reality of gang life.
The FBI and the LAPD have taken a huge step in reducing gang activity in the harbor area. Today, authorities announced several arrests in a multi-agency operation focused on getting guns and drugs off the streets.
Orange County reporter David Gonzalez has more from San Pedro.
The FBI and LAPD celebrate the end of an investigation that focused on getting guns and drugs off the streets in the harbor area of Los Angeles.
Each one of these guns was destined to get into the hands of a criminal, a violent criminal.
The FBI says 11 people were taken into custody Wednesday morning on federal and state narcotics and weapons charges.
We're talking about well over 50 pounds of methamphetamine, about 23,000 fentanyl pills, more than 5 pounds of powdered fentanyl, and 23 firearms, some of which were ghost guns.
Operation Wipeout started in December 2020 and targeted some of the most dangerous gang members in the harbor area and their associates, some of who were working with the cartel from behind bars.
Most of those arrested today were gang members and their associates who were peddling large quantities of dangerous drugs and weapons at the behest of the Mexican Mafia.
Authorities continue searching for 3 fugitives associated with this operation. Law enforcement says dismantling the leadership of these dangerous gangs will make the harbor area safer.
These don't just represent guns. They don't just represent narcotics. They represent the safety of this beautiful community that we have surrounding the harbor area.
If you have any information on these fugitives, you're urged to call authorities immediately. But the FBI and LAPD say that they've taken a huge step in reducing gang activity in harbor.
He once ran with the Mexican Mafia. Now a former gang member is the star witness in a federal trial against several Mafia members. Linda Joyce reports for over a year, the witness secretly recorded the defendants.
Prosecutors say these 12 members of the Mexican Mafia and one associate are the highest-ranking members of one of the most ruthless prison gangs in this state's history. They say they are responsible for more than a dozen murders and attempted murders, drug trafficking, and extortion on the streets. Now, one of their own, Ernest Chuco Castro, testified in court about those crimes. For more than 1 year, Castro secretly recorded conversations with several of the defendants. Jurors listened to a conversation between Castro and defendant David Gallardo, a gang member since 1989. There was talk about another gang member named Gibby, who was to be killed. When Castro was asked why, he told the court, quote, he was involved in an altercation with officers and he was crying. He was a coward. In another taped conversation, Castro said another defendant, Ricardo Rascal Gonzalez, who has since died, bragged about a killing, pointing to a switchblade and saying, quote, this is the one I killed my homeboy with. Defense attorneys objected, arguing that Castro's testimony was improper because he was asked to interpret slang words such as powder for cocaine and spot for a place to sell drugs, and that was only Castro's interpretation and therefore meaningless. Defense attorneys have also portrayed Castro as a murderous, drug-addicted liar who told authorities what they wanted to hear so he could avoid a life prison sentence. Castro is now part of the federal witness protection program. This trial is expected to wrap up in a couple of months. The prosecution has almost completed presenting its case with Ernest Chuco Castro as its prime witness. In downtown Los Angeles, Linda Joyce, Fox.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Hope y'all having a blessed day. Really quick, before we jump into this, if you would, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It goes a very long way for the growth of this channel. Next goal, I'm going to say it now, 30K. Don't know when I'm going to get there, but that is the newest goal. Okay, so we're going to be sticking with the La M theme. We're going to be talking about another, basically an inside hit job that the Mexican Mafia committed on one of its members back in 2016. A guy by the name of Emiliano Tonito Lopez, repping Eastside Wilmas. Just another very violent individual who was serving a very long, lengthy sentence for murder. And ultimately, at one point had power, had a good, reputation. And when I'm talking good reputation, I'm saying he had a good rep within the Mexican Mafia. Was, pretty much well liked, was doing his thing. But he was known as somebody that talked too damn much on the phone. And for multiple different reasons, fell out of favor with the Mexican Mafia. There was a rumor that his wife or girlfriend was acting as a DEA informant. And when you hear him talk on certain wiretaps, and we're going to get to where you guys can find these wiretaps and listen to them for yourself, it's kind of like, God, he's so reckless. It's no wonder. This is one of those examples where I go, I see why he got hit. I see why he got murdered. How he talks on the phone, just how open he is about everything. And then you add on the fact that his wife, girlfriend, whatever, is possibly a DEA informant. You're not long for the world. I guess that's the best way to put it. But one thing I do take pride in is giving you guys more details and more history and background information on the people that we talk about. So if you type in Emiliano Tonito Lopez, right? You're on YouTube right now listening to me. You go look him up. There's some great channels out there that go even more in depth about Emiliano Tonito Lopez and his execution. But one thing we're going to be talking about that other channels do not is a background of a murder that was committed back in 2010 that involved Emiliano Tonito Lopez's brother and some of his underlings. It was an order that he gave to murder this guy that basically wasn't kicking back to the gang. He was a collector of taxes. If you already know anything about the Mexican Mafia, they have a dime that all the gangs that they control, you have to kick up a percentage of your drug proceeds or your whatever kind of illegal activity you're doing, or even legitimate businesses. They get extorted just the same. You got to kick up a percentage to the mob. It just is what it is. And this guy didn't think he had to do that. It was actually a white guy that they killed. So first, I want to get into that. A little bit of background history on Emiliano Tonito Lopez, again, from Eastside Wilmas, okay? Now, a little bit of background on Eastside Wilmas before we cover this case really quick. Eastside Wilmas gang originated in the east side of Wilmington around L Street and Hyatt Avenue. Avalon Boulevard acts as the borderline between them and the West Side Wilmas, two very huge gangs. The Eastside Wilmas have approximately 650 active gang members. Again, this is on the UnitedGangs.com website. Amazing website. Go check it out for yourselves. That number could be higher now from when this was posted, but still gives you a good idea. There are three subsets in that Wilmington area: Eastside Wilmas, Westside Wilmas, and the Northside Wilmas. Northside Wilmas is very, very small, okay? Several cliques with the Eastside Wilmas: Ghost Town Locos, Hyatt Street Locos, Mejar Locos, Insane Mexican Gang, and the L Street Maniacs, all right? And basically, they run the show. And the one thing that will throw you off a little bit, if you look up Eastside Wilmas and you don't know a lot about, because they're a Southsider gang, Sorreño gang, but they wear red. So just kind of like on a surface level, you might go, oh, that's kind of weird, but it just is what it is, okay? They are 1,000% a Southsider gang. But what's a little bit interesting, and I mentioned this in a video I did not that long ago, we covered a guy that was a Westside Wilmas gang member. On the street, Eastside Wilmas, Westside Wilmas, they beef. But when they go to the pen, and again, this just shows you the power of the Mexican Mafia, they are all under the control of La M, and they answer to and work for the Mexican Mafia. It just is what it is. Everyone comes together, and now you have a much higher cause and a much higher, let's just say, boss. Okay, let's just put it, call it what it is. But again, there was a murder back in July of 2010 of a guy by the name of William Tiny Knight. He was murdered on July 5th, 2010. And basically, our guy Tonito, along with his brother and underlings, murdered this guy. This is a quick article about the murder. Then we're going to get into the actual appeal that was filed on his brother's behalf and get into some more facts on the case. William Knight, a 33-year-old white man, was fatally shot Monday, July 5th, this is again 2010, in the 1600 block of West Turner Ninth Street in the Harbor Gateway area, according to Los Angeles County coroner records. Knight was standing in front of an apartment complex at about 10:20 p.m. when an assailant walked up and shot him several times, said LAPD Harbor Detective David Alvarez, who was handling the investigation. People in the area later discovered Knight wounded and called paramedics. He was taken to Harbor UCLA Medical Center where he died. Investigators currently have no description of the possible shooter, and this is what I found really interesting about this, okay? So July 5th, you don't really think anything of it, but then you realize, wait, the day before was July 4th, fireworks. And that's exactly what people thought in the area. Now, do I want to say all the way that they planned it for July 5th? I don't, because I don't know that, but it makes sense. And you can think whatever you want about these gang members, or respect them, not respect them, think they're just trash, think they're just, absolute, horrible for society. But one thing you cannot say is that they are not smart. So for me, I lean a little more towards they might have planned it the day after the 4th of July, so those gunshots would blend in, and it worked. People literally thought that the gunshots were fireworks. All right, now let's jump over to this appeal. This appeal was filed back, not that long ago, in 2022. In a 19-count indictment, the prosecution jointly charged appellants Sheldon McMorris, David Solario, and Ronald Lopez. Ronald Lopez is the brother of our guy, Emiliano Tonito Lopez, with the murder of William Tiny Knight and other offenses, including attempted murder, conspiracy, and extortion. They were tried jointly before a single jury. The jury found all of them guilty of the first-degree murder of Knight and convicted them as charged on all counts. Little work radio there, sorry about that. Little factual background and procedural history. The prosecution contended that the three appellants were part of the Mexican Mafia crew working for our guy, Emiliano Tonito Lopez, an inmate incarcerated at the time at Pelican Bay State Prison. Remember, he got murdered in Calipatria, but at this time he's Pelican Bay. Appellant Lopez is Tonito's brother, was the crew chief. Solario was a camarada who served as basically Lopez's assistant. McMorris, along with others, were enforcers or tax collectors who extorted rent or tax money from gangs operating in areas controlled by Emiliano Tonito Lopez's crew, and turned the money over to Lopez and Solario, who in turn would turn it over to Emiliano, who basically said, what to do with it, put it here, put it there, give it to my girlfriend. We're going to get to her in just a minute. Under the direction of Lopez and Solario, McMorris shot and killed Knight on July 5th, 2010, because Knight, who also was extorting rent or tax money from gangs on behalf of the crew, failed to turn the money over to Lopez or Solario. Drug habit, family issues, who knows? Don't pay one time, you can pay with your life. The prosecution also contended appellants Lopez and Solario conspired to have 2 county jail inmates. This is how wicked this stuff is, guys. James Arano and Daniel Bergerin killed for breaking Mexican Mafia rules. It's just, man, it's so treacherous. Every time I read these, it's just like, man, you step out of line one time, you're done. An order comes down, you're done. There's somebody waiting in the wings to prove themselves, to move up the rank. It's literally a dog-eat-dog world, man. Trial evidence consisted primarily of recordings, so remember that, of recordings of intercepted phone calls, audio recordings from body wires worn by informants, text messages, interpretation by gang experts of language used in the calls, conversations, and text messages, cell phone triangulation, surveillance, and McMorris' confession to an informant. Because it just started with that. The shooter confessed. After summarizing the information, we summarize that the relevant trial evidence concerning the Mexican Mafia and the shooting of Knight. Additional facts relevant to particular legal issues are discussed later in the opinion. Okay, scrolling down here, talking about the Mexican Mafia hierarchy. We don't need to get into that. Tonito's crew, as noted above. Lopez is Tonito's younger brother and was Tonito's second in command. McMorris, nicknamed Goofy, had tattoos signifying membership in the Mexican Mafia, as did Solario, nicknamed Blackie. Lopez's nickname was Dave. That's Tonito's brother. Solario and Lopez were camarades, while McMorris was a soldier. Tonito's crew collected taxes at the beginning of each month. Here's his girlfriend, Lisa Robles. Remember, she would become what they thought was maybe a DEA informant, was Tonito's girlfriend. In approximately 2007, she met his brother, Lopez. Robles began to collect taxes in Newhall and sent the money to to his brother, Lopez. She met Solario in 2008 through Tonito and conveyed messages from his brother Lopez and Solario to her boyfriend, Tonito. the big dog. They also spoke about Mexican Mafia business. Tonito told Solario that Solario was a camarada. Tonito gave Solario the authority to handle problems he had with someone. Quote, you handle it however you think you need to handle it, but don't let nobody know about it. Just deal with it. Solario put Ovidio Salazar, nicknamed Flaco, in charge of collecting taxes in 2009, and Salazar reported to Solario and Lopez. Salazar, who had started as a member of the Garden View Locos gang, collected taxes in Bell Gardens, Pasadena, and the Harbor area. He delivered the taxes to Tonito's brother Lopez. Salazar began working for Lopez in May 2009 after a stay in prison. Sometime in 2010, Lopez appointed Knight the tax collector for the Harbor area. And from there, it all just fell apart, okay? And without going into too much, basically what the rest of this says is that the state, that was prosecuting this case intercepted all of these phone calls between Emiliano, Tonito, Lopez, and all of these guys. So he talks a lot on the phone. And that brings us to his murder. But I just want to give that background because I feel like that's so important to talk about. And nothing against any other content creators because there's great videos on him that are better than mine, but they just don't happen to cover this part of it. And I feel like that would add a lot to my video. And I just feel like it would give a good background, kind of a backdrop to how the rest of basically Emiliano Tonito Lopez's life would turn out. Now, big channel I always shout out on social media, Prison Chronicles. They do a great breakdown. Go right now. Sub to that YouTube channel, Prison Chronicles. Go on to social media. Check it out. It's an awesome page. Emiliano Tonito Lopez from Wilmington, California. Tonito was an established Mexican Mafia figure serving a life sentence for murder. Like most members, he continued to conduct illegal business using contraband cell phones and at times recorded prison phones. Why? Just like, why, bro? Tonito utilized his wife as a conduit to him and to conduct business. The MA became aware that she was communicating with law enforcement and told Tonito to handle it. Eventually, many members felt that too much time had passed and began pushing for Tonito to be hit. So basically, it was like, hey, man, you need to kill your wife. You need to take care of her, or you already know what comes. I feel like at this point, Tonito, he's been around so long, he doesn't even need to be told what will happen if he doesn't do it, right? It's just like you know what's going to happen if you don't do it. Intercepted wiretap phone calls recorded members discussing the hit a few days before it took place. On July 10th, 2016, two groups of inmates attacked. The first group attacked Tonito's bodyguards, causing a diversion. Bodyguards in prison. Yes, dude's got bodyguards. He's chilling, man. Causing a diversion, while two inmates, Stomper and Spider from Monrovia, California, attacked and stabbed Tonito, pushing him against the fence and stabbing him over 80 times. In total, 22 inmates were involved in the incident that left him dead. A twist to the story is that although the hit was ordered by the MA and the hitters were promised membership, remember what I said in the intro, promised membership if they successfully carried it out, they had broken a long-standing rule that says that only a member can kill a member. And so Stomper and Spider were both stabbed. Stomper was actually attacked twice on two different prison yards, while Spider, he locked it up. He said, man, buck this. I'm going into protective custody after the first attack. That just shows you, man. They get told by the Mexican Mafia to kill this. And we're going to get into more details here in just a sec, guys. This got me like, wow, man, I had to wrap my head around this. I watched so many different things on this. So basically, though, what that tells you is these two Soreños get told, kill him, a high-ranking Mexican Mafia member, and you will get into the Mexican Mafia. Well, if you've watched my channel at all, you know a rule for the Mexican Mafia: a member cannot be killed by a non-member. So these two, Stomper and Spider, we're going to get into it, but basically they were making numerous phone calls to the people who had ordered this hit, and I put their picture up there in the intro. Okay, we're going to go over them in just a second, saying, hey, are you sure this is what we are supposed to do? Like, we're double, triple, quadruple checking, 5 times over checking. Is this what you want us to do? And yes, that's what they were told to do. Okay? Now, originally, the hit apparently had come from, and a guy we've covered on this channel, a guy by the name of Ronald Ayala, a.k.a. Ronnie, a very high-ranking, influential Mexican Mafia member who also has a brother in the Mexican Mafia. Apparently that was where the hit kind of came from. And that brings us to a guy by the name of, you guys will all know him, Rene Boxer Enriquez. He has an awesome YouTube channel where he played these wiretaps on his channel. Go check him out. He's all over social media, man. That guy is blowing up big time. He's been blowing up even before social media or YouTube, but His channel is really good. I encourage any of you guys to go check it out. He's got awesome inside information, all these wiretaps. I'm like, wow, man. But the little bit I took from him on this was that basically you have these 5 Mexican Mafia members discussing this hit, and law enforcement intercepted it. Daniel Pina, a.k.a. Danny Boy from Big Hazard. David Gabaldon, a.k.a. Spider from Cantaranas. Donald Galaz, a.k.a. Stony from Rancho San Pedro. Michael Masca Torres, or Fly. We covered him, man. He ended up getting murdered too, so I just think it's ironic that here he is ordering a hit of a fellow carnale, and not long after that, they did him in. And Emiliano Lopez, a.k.a. Tonito from Eastside Wilmas, was the target. And a guy that had joined the conversation a little bit later in was Richard Buchanan, a.k.a. Richie from Otay. But again, these guys, and if you go to Boxer's channel, he plays these wiretaps. And it's kind of a free-flowing conversation. They're trying to talk in code. They're not doing the best job of it. They're talking about if you take him to the car show. Well, they're not talking about a car show. They're talking about if you take him to the car show means if you kill him, okay, then we got to have a plan in case he doesn't die. They did a pretty good job of making sure Tonito did die. The only thing I found interesting is I couldn't find the real names for Spider and Stomper. Go to Renee's channel. He gives out he uses a few different names. I feel like I don't want to use them. Go to his channel, check him out. Because I can't really confirm it, but I think he kind of uses, actually, I believe they're real names. And basically what I took away from those wiretaps is Mosca Fly Torres does a lot of the talking. And he's the one trying to speak in coded language, and the guys are trying to keep up with it. But they get it done. One way or another, they get it done. And at the end of the day, it just came down to the fact, I mean, I'm sure there's inner working in politics that or specific things that may have happened. But at the end of the day, he talked too much. His wife talked too much. Informants, people turned against him. He was on jailhouse record. When you listen to these wiretaps, he's openly talking about all of this stuff. And he's the first one I've covered that was a Mexican Mafia member that just openly talked on recorded lines. A lot of the stuff I cover, they intercept things, they intercept things, whatever. But in this case, it was like this guy, Emiliano Tonito Lopez, was just putting the business out there on Front Street, man. So anyway, much love. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Till next time, peace. I'm sorry, I'm at work. I know my radio's going off, phone calls coming in, but it is what it is. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Peace.